Welcome to the Spokane City Council briefing session, and combined with the legislative session. We're going to start with the briefing session, but before we do that, we'll ask Ms. Farnsworth to call the roll.
Council President Beggs.
Here.
Councilmember Bingle.
Here.
Councilmember Cathcart.
Present.
Councilmember Kinnear.
Present.
Councilmember Stratton.
Here.
Councilmember Wilkerson.
Present.
Councilmember Zappone.
Here.
All right, so we're going to start. We have several things going on. We're going to start today with two interviews. Chris Neely who's been nominated by the mayor to serve on the Plan Commission, and then Kelly Baker, who's been nominated to serve on the Arts Commission. So, Chris, we'll start with you. Welcome to City Council, and we'd love it if you would just introduce yourself and talk a little bit about yourself and why you want to serve on the Plan Commission and what you think you can bring to it.
Okay, great. Thank you to the City Council for taking time to talk to us today. My family and I moved here a few years ago. I found a lovely house up here on the South Hill, and we have enjoyed every single minute of our time in Spokane. We moved here from California, where I saw over the course of my lifetime a lot of what happens when planning commissions get a little bit out of sync with maybe what's the best thing for the natural world. I've seen the devastating effects of fires that invade cities and things of that nature. And so when I was looking for someplace to move to, a number of friends of mine who live up in this area said Spokane was a city on the move, and I said, if it's moving, then I want to be a part of it. So I came here and joined the Southgate Neighborhood Council, where I often encounter Councilmember Wilkerson. I'm also on the Urban Forestry Tree Committee. I'm on the Board of Directors and the Finance Committee of the Land Council. And I think we're at a time from a planning perspective, considering the growth of the area, that if there's a row, or rather an oar that I can row to help a city on the move, then I want to volunteer.
All right. Thank you. Any questions from council members? Councilmember Kinnear.
Yes, hi. Thank you. I also represent you along with Councilmember Wilkerson. Thank you for putting yourself out there and volunteering. This is a Plan Commission is a commission with a lot of hours. Mm-hmm. So want to make sure you understand that, first of all. And the second thing is, are you familiar with our comprehensive plan and how that works?
From a time perspective, I'm absolutely committed to that. I'm semi-retired at this point anyway, so I have a pretty good idea of what the commitment will be, council member. The comprehensive plan, I've actually, to be completely honest, I'm just about halfway through reading it.
That is perfect answer. Thank you so much.
Councilmember Cathcart.
Yeah, thanks, Chris, for joining us today. Appreciate it. I just wondering if you could just chat just briefly about your general views on growth and housing, and kind of how you see Spokane moving forward in the next few years, addressing our lack of housing.
I've lived in cities where the housing availability, for example, Merced, California, where the housing availability was at 1% or less. And so I know what that's like. I also remember what the paint tastes like. I lived in subsidized housing when we were on welfare through the age of 7. And when you don't have enough to eat, you eat the paint. So affordable housing is something that's very important to me. Preserving the natural landscape as much as possible by, if we can build up rather than out in order to conserve. Really sitting and thinking our way through those sorts of decisions from a climate perspective, I think are important. And I think the issue of affordable housing, whether it's for students at the university or whether it's for citizens who are leading a financially challenged portion of their life, should be an absolute, top-tier matter for us.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Chris? All right. Chris, thanks so much. Oh, did someone? Betsy.
Thank you, Council President. I was going to say hello, Chris, and welcome. You live in a pretty unique neighborhood up at Southgate that is just overflowing with development and traffic. Any observations on how the city could help mitigate that from your short time in that area?
From a traffic perspective, council member, I can't make a substantive contribution to that because I haven't actually looked at the problem. But living through growth in the Central Valley of California, which is where I grew up, and watching hundreds and hundreds and thousands of acres of the richest farmland in the world disappear under parking lots because, again, people wanted to build out rather than up. When you're dealing with the vistas of a beautiful city, how do we preserve that even in a place that's growing as fast as the South Hill? That's part of the challenge of this job, and that's part of the reason why I'm so interested in doing it. Because I think experience in going to your neighbor to borrow a cup of sugar by sticking the cup out the kitchen window because the house next door is so close, you don't need to go to the front door. I think that can be useful as the South Hill and Spokane in general meets its growth obligations going forward.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Chris. And we'll be voting on your appointment in the near future. You don't have to attend that meeting. Thank you for your service to come. And anyone else who's interested in serving on Plan Commission needs to apply to the mayor's office. And she vets people, her staff, and nominates people, and then we consider them. Thanks so much. And let's turn to...
Thank you all for your time today.
Yeah. And we've got Kelly Baker, who's been nominated to be on the Arts Commission. Welcome to City Council, Kelly.
Hi, thank you.
Yeah, same kind of drill. You tell us a little bit about yourself and why you're interested in the Arts Commission and what you think you'll bring to the work.
Great. I feel lucky I don't have to speak about traffic. I've been here, just quick background, I grew up in Spokane until graduated from high school, spent the rest of my formative adult years away from the state, East Coast, and then 10 years in California, moved back here 5 years ago. Quickly covered up our California license plates, but I got to say that I'm from here,
Testify.
And I got involved, my background is in the commercial arts industry across mostly photography and fine arts, art museum world, publications, a little bit of everything. And I wanted to get involved with the arts right away when I showed up here. So in all of my research leading up to moving, I kept hearing about terrain. And sure enough, I landed at a terrain meeting and became a volunteer and pretty quickly got on board with Ginger and the group and helped open what was the pop-up shop in the steam plant building and became a employee working for them to do that and was the manager and helped open that for a year, which was a fantastic, not only introduction into the creative community in Spokane, but also the downtown community and how quickly and easily one can kind of meet this person and talk to that person and go up and visit Spokane and really see how interconnected it all could be, as well as how excited so many people were about and are about Spokane and what it is now, to speak to what Chris said about City on the Move. I used to joke that I should have worked for the census during my year in the steam plant there, because I met so many people coming through the building and through our shop who were just moved to Spokane, just moved back to Spokane, are thinking about moving to Spokane. And I found it very interesting that they also found themselves in the local community artist shop, and they were really excited about that. And I have just, I left Terrain after 1 year, and I've been working full-time at one of Spokane's little startups, which is now not so startup, E-Tails, now Caspian. I do brand managing, get involved in some of the creative design and marketing. So I like both the artist hands-on, somebody's in their studio working away in a corner, and the public-facing side of that, marketing, public relations, and communicating what it's all about to people who don't know. And I think I have seen how much the arts and culture can invigorate residents and citizens of a city, as well as visitors, and certainly people who are thinking about considering an area to live or invest in. And so arts is something I'm really excited about.
All right.
Those aren't my stairs.
Nope, that was a call-in user. Thank you, Kelly. Questions for Kelly? All right. Karen, you have to ask your question that you always ask for someone who's local.
Hey, Kelly, I always ask this question. Where'd you go to high school?
LC Tigers.
Okay. Good. I think we have some Elsie Tigers.
Yeah.
I went to Mary Cliff, so I was just
Oh.
up the hill.
Do you know it's so crazy? Back when I was an LC Tiger, I came back to town and I thought, what is that beautiful building, and what is all this whole world here that I hardly knew was there when I was a little teenager paying attention to other things.
Yep.
That was us.
Yep.
Yeah.
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 Anyway, I think you've got a great mix. I think you've got a good experience with, the art side, but also the marketing and promoting and getting that information and those messages out to community. So I think you're going to do great.
Yeah, that's what I'm interested in.
Yeah.
Council President?
Councilmember Wilkerson.
Thank you, and thank you for coming back home. From your marketing position, what do you think the city itself could do to help our local artists? I think we kind of dabble with it. I don't know if we built as strong a bridge or connection as we can with the arts.
Well, I feel like the things I've seen Spokane Art as an organization start to do are definitely in the right direction. I mean, the grants program, the artist roster, which is interesting. Total coincidence. Today I was needing to research some art or illustration or artist types for my job. And I thought, I remember Spokane Arts has a local artist roster. Wouldn't it be cool if I could find a local artist, illustrator? And even my experience as a user today, I thought, I've got some suggestions to make this more user-friendly and clear. But I think promoting, when they made that artist roster, and then I think, was it maybe during the beginning of the pandemic? I believe it was Spokane Arts, I could be wrong, who was behind even billboards downtown that featured the faces of a couple artists and said, hire an artist. And I liked that they were sending that message to the public that an artist isn't just somebody who does a painting in their studio and hangs it on a wall and you might look at it or buy it. An artist is somebody who is making a living, who has a service and a skill and a unique talent to offer that's of value, and they're for hire, and they're part of the infrastructure of our economy, what's being produced here. And I think that that's a really important message and sort of education that can keep going.
Yep.
As one thing.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. All right. Thank you again so much, Kelly. And of course, the city will be in touch after we have our vote on you. And thanks in advance for your service.
Thank you.
Yep. See you. All right. We have a proclamation and a salutation, and I'd like to do those because we have a guest waiting for the proclamation. So Councilmember Cathcart is going to read a proclamation for Lunar New Year and then introduce Vina Cathcart, who is leading some of the efforts to organize that. So Councilmember Cathcart.
Yeah, thank you very much. City of Spokane Proclamation. Whereas the traditional Lunar New Year celebration, also known as the Spring Festival, dates back as early as the 14th century BC and is celebrated uniquely in many different Asian countries. But regardless of the country, culture, religion, or ethnicity, the day is a time for family reunions, gatherings, reaffirming bonds, and reflection. And whereas the City of Spokane, through its diverse recreational, business, and educational opportunities, has established a welcoming environment for all people, in particular for the many and differing Asian communities. Asian families that have been here for generations, dating back to the 1800s, with the Chinese and Japanese migrants whose labor notably helped to build this city, as well as newer Asian immigrants. And whereas this year, the Year of the Tiger, which symbolizes leadership, diligence, and courageousness, the Lunar New Year celebration will provide the citizens of Spokane and the entire region a wonderful opportunity to join together for a cultural event that has not been formally celebrated in Spokane for the last 89 years. Now, therefore, I, Nadine Woodward, Mayor of the City of Spokane, on behalf of the citizens of Spokane, do hereby proclaim February 1, 2022 as Lunar New Year Day in Spokane, and encourages all members of the community to join me in this special observation by wishing all residents good health and prosperity as we welcome the new lunar year. And I will turn it over to my wonderful wife, Vina, who is on the call.
Welcome, Vina. Tell us more about what you have planned.
Thank you. Thank you so much. This has been a long time coming. Like the proclamation mentions, this is the first time in 89 years that Spokane will formally celebrate the Lunar New Year. I have grown up here in Spokane my entire life, and the Lunar New Year is always a wonderful time that I always look forward to. And looking to other big cities, they were always, community celebrations. And that was something that Spokane was missing that I've noticed for my 20-something years I've been alive here. And so Spokane's United We Stand is organizing the Lunar New Year celebration. It's going to be this Saturday, February 5th, 2022, at the U.S. Pavilion in Riverfront Park. The event will start from 1 p.m. and it will go to 7 p.m. First 500 people will get a Lunar New Year swag bag. A lot of our community partners have thrown in a lot of free gifts and giveaways for everyone so that everyone can enjoy the Lunar New Year. There's live cultural performances, vendors, food trucks, demos, and then there will be a fireworks show to cap off the end of the night at 7 o'clock. So I hope everyone can come down there and join us and ring in this historic celebration. It's going to be a great time. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, and United We Stand, for all the planning you've done. We're really looking forward to it, so thanks so much. And before we go to the salutation, I just wanted to mention to people, if you have signed up to participate in testifying as a member of the public with City Council, if you could email Hannah-Lee Allers again, the link initially for appearing by video was not the correct link, so she can get you the right link, and that's hallers@spokanecity.org. But with that, I think, Councilmember Kinnear, you have a salutation for us.
I do, and this one makes me a little sad. It is for Louis Mueller, and Louis is an immensely valuable part of our city's planning department. I'm I'm personally incredibly sad to see him leave, and he's taking with him 27 years of experience. This is not the salutation. I have to have my preamble here. He's taking with him 27 years of experience and institutional knowledge, and that amount of intellectual heft is impossible to replace. He's also taking with him this cuttingly dry sense of humor. Planning humor is notoriously deadpan, and Louis has a particular knack for making quips that if you're not really paying attention, you're likely to miss. Louis told me that as he moves on to the next phase of his career, Spokane will remain his home. And that is unsurprising, as his love for our city clearly shone through in his planning work. Louis, we're sad to see you off, and we wish you the very best in your next chapter. Now, I have the privilege of reading a salutation from the mayor, honoring Louis for the years of service to the city. Whereas Louis Mueller has been an invaluable employee of the city of Spokane since 1994, when he accepted a position with the planning department, and has made significant contributions to the city of Spokane throughout his 25-plus year career with the city planning department, and his work with the Plan Commission while planning for Spokane's future. And whereas Louis's work on major projects, including the city's adoption of the Growth Management Act, the housing chapter, the comprehensive planned land use chapter, and implementing unified development code regulations, urban growth area planning and regional planning, fast forward Spokane, downtown plan, joint land use planning with Fairchild Air Force Base, Link Spokane, and capital facilities planning, and numerous other projects. It represents a substantial body of extraordinary work that leaves a positive and permanent legacy for the citizens of Spokane. And whereas Louis has always worked enthusiastically and patiently with city staff, constituents, agency and organization representatives, developers, boards, hearing examiners, focus groups, committees, councils, and commissions, and is best described as polite, informed, collaborative, hardworking, and always willing to help others. Now, therefore, I, Nadine Woodward, Mayor of the City of Spokane, on behalf of the citizens of Spokane, do hereby salute Louis Mueller for his exemplary, I can't even say that, exemplary service to the planning department and the entire Spokane community. So Louis, please join us and say a few words and give us something to tell us something about what you're taking with you.
Well, first of all, I'm making sure that our staff has my name and number and location to where they can get a hold of me for, any background information that I can help give going forward. I really thank you for this, and I really appreciate the citizens of Spokane, the time I've been able to engage with them, working with the volunteer bodies of the Bicycle Advisory Board, the Design Review Board, and the Plan Commission, the thousands of hours that the citizens of Spokane have given on those boards and participated in our planning processes. It's really been amazing time here at the city, and it really humbles me when I think about all the volunteer time and effort that goes into making Spokane the place that we all hope it can be. I will finish up there. This is a rather embarrassing, quite honestly. It's really been an honor to be able to work for the city of Spokane for more than half my life so far. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Louis. All right. Thank you. Councilmember Stratton, I think you had a request.
I do have a request. I would like to have a moment for a point of personal privilege.
All right, go ahead.
So last night we learned about the death of an individual at one of our homeless camps. I did some checking and found out that his name was Jeff. He was 40 years old, and he was staying at the convention center and joined the homeless camp when the convention center closed. He was someone's son, maybe someone's brother, maybe a husband and a father who just got lost along the way. In the name of compassion, I'd like to offer a moment of silence in Jeff's memory as I thought about his death after we got the notice, I thought about all of the times that I've had the blessing and the opportunity to hold the hands of the people that I love before they leave this earth, and what a blessing that is. And I thought to myself that no one should ever have to die alone in the cold in a tent with no family around to hold their hand. So I would like to offer a moment of silence for Jeff and his family wherever they are.
All right. Will you all please join us for some moments of silence, and I'll call us out of it. Thanks. Thank you.
Thank you, Council President.
Yeah, thank you. All right, so order of business is we're going to go to our advanced council agenda. Mr. Perkins is going to brief that. Then we'll come out of that and go to our legislative agenda, and then we'll go to an executive session. So, Mr. Perkins, take it away.
Thank you, Council President. Thank you, Council President. Good afternoon, council members. We'll start with number 1, which is a lease of a Ford Ranger for the engineering department, and Rick Giddings is here to present. Mr. Giddings.
Thank you, Mr. Perkins. Good afternoon, council. Because there are no suitable electric or other clean fuel vehicles available to meet this particular need, the engineering department would like to lease a Ford Ranger using the Enterprise Fleet Master contract. Monthly lease amount will be $526.48 for 36 months for a total of $18,953.28. This is an open-ended lease that can be canceled if a viable clean fuel vehicle becomes available. Any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Giddings. Next, number 2, contract renewal for HR software for NeoGov. Mike Sloan. Mr. Sloan.
Thank you, sir. Good afternoon, City Council. Item 2 is a contract renewal for HR software from NeoGov. This is a continuation of the services provided for the intake and for new employees, as well as advertising for open positions. Please note that this request for your approval of $81,958.46 is an increase from the previous year. Previous year was $67,548. The increase is due to the addition of NeoGov's Test Genius module. It's in addition that we've had a request from Civil Service to add the HR to add this as an additional intake tool to help expedite the process and do a little bit better and more thorough job of testing applicants applying for city positions. So asking approval for this annual maintenance support agreement. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sloan. Item 3, first of 2 one-year contract renewals with Kenworth Sales and Fleet Painting. The briefing will be by Mr. David Stockdale. Mr. Stockdale.
Greetings, Mr. Perkins, Council President, and Council. Yes, before you is also another renewal. It's the first of 2 optional one-year renewals on a contract that we've had in place for 3 years. This contract is for the repair of heavy equipment. Both Fleet Services and Fire have access to this contract. The primary contractor is Fleet Painting in the amount of $450,000, and the secondary contractor is Kenworth Sales in the amount of $50,000.
All right, thank you, Mr. Stockdale. Appreciate that. Item 4, 4-year contract with Coeur d'Alene Service Station. Again, Mr. Rick Giddings.
Thanks again. Fleet Services would like to set up a 4-year contract with Coeur d'Alene Service Station Equipment for on-call repairs for the various fuel sites across the city. An RFP was initiated in November, and Coeur d'Alene Service Station Equipment was the only qualified respondent. Fleet is in the early process of hiring a full-time fuel site attendant who will be able to perform much of the maintenance at the sites. But as our fuel site equipment ages, it will still be necessary to have an on-call vendor or on-call vendor support. Contract would be for a maximum of $300,000 over 4 years. Any questions?
Thank you again, Mr. Giddings. Appreciate that, sir. Items 5 and 6 are standard items on the agenda. Number 5 is a report on the pending claims of payments for parks and libraries. The blanks to be completed for next week's February 7, 2022 council meeting. Number 6 is council meetings, also to be completed for the February 7th meeting at the next council meeting. All right, moving along on appointments, we have 4 appointments for the Arts Commission. And then under special budget ordinances, we have an action to carry over the budget authority from the 2021 obligated budget. And I'll turn it over to Paul and Josie.
Thank you, Mr. Perkins. Good afternoon, City Council. This ordinance, the special budget ordinance before you, begins on PDF page 60 of your packet. It's part of our annual operating budget process, where we move budget authority from the prior year into the current year for properly encumbered items such as grants, capital projects, or goods and services. We're still working through the final numbers, so we should have a draft for you pretty shortly this week. The overall universe that we're looking at for 2021 is approximately $117 million across all city funds, with about $3.8 million of that being in the general fund. And we're working to get those numbers to you as soon as we can. Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. and Josie. Up next, a report under special budget ordinances for Public Safety Personnel and Crime Reduction Fund, appropriation thereof. Mr. Howard Delaney. Mr. Delaney.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Mr. Perkins. Good afternoon, Council. This is for the position of a community justice services specialist that I briefed Council on last week related to the new misdemeanor possession of controlled substances ordinance. This person is designed to get the referrals from the SPD and then follow up on the referrals to assessment to offer the person or persons, depending on the number of them, the opportunity to get assessed, to get rides to their assessment, anything we can do to break down the barriers and get people that have been provided with assessment referrals actually to engage in the assessment and treatment process. Even though there will be some delay in hiring this person because we've got to get it in NeoGov and do the recruitment, we have patched together a temporary solution by using existing employees. So the police started the referral process on the 21st. They just got out their training memo, and we're awaiting our first referral, but we're prepared to start that immediately while we wait for this position to actually get hired. Any questions? Happy to answer them. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Delaney. Next up, under special budget ordinances, increased appropriation to community housing and human services. Briefing to be provided by Mr. Jacob Miller. Mr. Miller.
Thank you, Council. Today, I'll just provide an update on the amounts that we discussed during last week's meeting, and then I'll just speak to a couple of the items that we discussed and were asked about as well. So I'll start by sharing my screen just to get the numbers out there. So these are for the costs of the entire emergency shelter, not just the facility rental for the Spokane Convention Center. So the most up-to-date values, these are final amounts here in the top. The Guardians Foundation portion, $136,000. Janitorial services, $50,000. Security services, almost $41,000. And then the rental itself being nearly $66,000. So that subtotal is down about nearly 50,000 from last week, the numbers we had at that point, which is good. The estimate for the damages increased 20,000 within that time as well, so from 90,000 to 110,000, and then the cost of the Spokane Police Department overtime has remained the same. The budget we have for that is 300,000, which leaves a difference between the total of 164,000 about. So this SBO is for 270,000, and that would leave currently a remainder of 106,000 for either changes to the cost of damage repair or future emergency sheltering, which is likely to occur throughout the rest of the year. And then last week, Councilmember Kinnear asked about insurance that we may have to cover the damages. And we do have insurance, however, it doesn't kick in until the city pays $1 million. So that wouldn't apply here with the cost of damages being 110,000. And then Councilmember Kinnear also asked about comparisons of this emergency shelter to others. And it's kind of difficult to compare them just because of the number of beds or number of people sheltered by a given shelter and the length of time they're open. But a good comparison to make is between just the Guardians Foundation contracts that we currently have. So there's a small temporary shelter contract we have, which only houses 20 per night. It's just for surge capacity. And that total cost is about $50,000 for that contract. Another permanent shelter that they manage for us is the Cannon Shelter, and that houses 72 people per night. That contract is over the course of 8 months and costs $1.85 million, or the monthly cost is $232,000. And then the shelter we're talking about today is that warming center at the convention center, and that was able to house between 200 and 300 people per night over the course of 15 days. Now, the cost of the base cost, I'm just ignoring the damage in terms of this comparison, but the base cost is $354,000. But the amount housed was, around triple what the Cannon Shelter houses. So, yes, the cost is more, and it was over, less than a month, but it seems to be in line with the Cannon Shelter on a per person basis. And then Councilmember Cathcart asked about future emergency sheltering costs, and I think that's an appropriate thing to think about. We do have this additional appropriation built into the SBO, whether costs increase or for future sheltering needs. But with the changes that occurred to the activation criteria last July, I think it's appropriate to start looking at it differently, just because the frequency of emergency sheltering, whether it be warming centers, cooling centers, or safe air centers, I suppose, those will start to increase, of course. So yeah, that's something that we'll start looking at for the future or the remainder of this year. I can take any questions you may have.
Jake Brian here. I have two related questions. Do you have any sense we're paying for police there, but we're also paying for security and janitorial. Do you have any sense of how many security employees were on duty at any one time? And then I'm also wondering on the janitorial of how many people was that paying for over those 2 weeks?
I don't know exactly on the janitorial or the security services. I know that SPD had 2 officers there all the time for those 15 days. So that's that cost of overtime for them. I think most of it was overtime. And then, but I can get you some more information about the janitorial and security services if you'd like.
That'd be great, because I think those 3 costs, the police, the security, and the extra janitorial, seem to be quite a bit for just 15 days compared to what a normal shelter, even with more people. So it'd be helpful to know. And I know that we were contracting on short notice, so that makes it harder, but it'd be helpful to get a little better understanding on that. So, but not today. Thanks.
Absolutely.
Councilmember Kinnear.
Jake, thanks for following up with us and giving us this information. I think it would be useful for all of us to really look at the daily cost per person when we are thinking about funding some of these shelters, because it's quite high. So I just did on the Cannon Street shelter, for example, it's about $100 a day per person. So you can get a hotel for that. And I really would like to be more thoughtful about how we're moving forward. I feel it's reactive and not proactive. I think we can do better. And I'm asking administration, please, let's plan so we're not in this scramble at the last minute. Every time there's an event, whether it's heat, smoke, cold, so that we don't have to go through this every time and spend all this money that I think is probably needless if we just had some better planning.
Any other questions?
I just want to respond to Councilmember Kinnear on that cost per person. And yes, Councilmember Kinnear, that is high, but being in the field, I have to say that is about the going rate, if you want to call it that, of caring for someone, where it is overnight care, supervision, meals, and it's all labor. However, I do think with a little bit more planning, we may be able to lower that cost, but certainly on last minute, we are at the mercy of whatever is being charged, because we don't have any other options.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Miller.
So I think
I know we're at resolutions, and I saw the addendum come in. Do you want me to read that now or move on to the first reading ordinances?
I think Councilmember Zepone had a comment.
Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize.
Go ahead, Councilmember Zepone. We can't hear you.
Speaker?
All right.
Shall we move on, Zach? Okay.
I think Councilmember Kinnear, if I'm looking at my agenda, advanced agenda correctly, wanted to bring a motion to defer her parks resolution, or did we already do that?
No, we haven't done that, and yes, I do. And yes, I would like to make a motion to defer that until such time as the legislature passes their legislation that is would directly affect how we go forward with this.
Okay. Let me look on my calendar really quick when they're going to be done. So I would suggest you defer it to April 11th. That'll be after the legislature's over. So.
And April 11th sounds like a great date, so I move to defer this piece of legislation till April 11th.
Okay. Is there a second?
And I'll second.
All right. A motion and a second. Any discussion? All right. I'll just add for anyone watching is that there are several bills that would impact this potentially. And we don't know which one is going to pass or not and how it will. So that said, all those in favor of the motion to defer to April 11th indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay? Any abstentions? All right, that's deferred. All right, now, first reading.
Council President, real quick.
Oh, yeah.
Can I go back?
Yeah.
Sorry, I couldn't, my mute button disappeared, so it's not a virtual meeting without tech problems.
All right.
But I just had a question about the virtual shelter real quick, or the warming shelter at the convention center. And it was a follow-up to the staffing of Spokane police that were there 24/7. When I went to visit, I didn't see any police officers there, so I just wonder what the expectation of 24/7 is. Maybe they're on lunch. I mean, I wasn't there very long, so I just want to clarify that expectation of what that was.
I can get you some more specifics about exactly what they were doing and where they were at any given time, but I mean, to the extent possible, of course. Yeah, I can provide that. Thank you.
Thanks.
And I don't know if this will be the information that comes back, but one understanding I had is that they weren't inside the shelter. They were outside the building, sort of on call, as opposed to being in there. But Mr. Perkins.
Thank you, Council President. Council members opponent, I can address that. And we can certainly follow up. The officers were there to be available on a moment's notice if necessary. As the Council President indicated, they were outside as not to show any presence for anyone who was a guest at the shelter. We were very cognizant of that. And they were not visible. They were in an area where, again, if they were needed, they could move quickly, but they weren't visible like standing guard or watch on front. We didn't want to have that exposure. It was only if there was an emergency, but they were out of sight, but necessarily there if we needed them right away. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, first reading ordinances.
First reading ordinances relating to multifamily housing property tax exemption, and I'll turn it over to Terry Stripes. Ms. Stripes.
Thank you, Mr. Perkins. Council President, Council, this is our third touch on this topic. We briefed this item for the small boundary change of adding Garland to the multifamily tax exemption boundary at Urban Experience on January 10th. We briefed it last week when you passed the legislation setting the hearing coming up. This ordinance is that hearing. The first reading will be on the 7th. The second reading and final reading will be on the 14th. I wasn't planning to do a PowerPoint presentation for you again because we've gone through this before, but if you'd like me to, I can. Thank you.
I say no. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Stripes. And finally, hearings H1AB, H2AB regarding vacation of various rights of ways. Mr. Eldon Brown. Mr. Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Perkins. Good afternoon, Council. The first one on there, which is the vacation of right-of-ways in the Minnehaha area, and I'll see if I can pull up our map here. So far, I haven't got our map here yet. All right, can you see that map? Okay, this first map is various right-of-ways up there. We're in the northeast part of town, right across the street from the Esmeralda Golf Course, just west of Freya Street. The applicants would like to actually vacate all those crosshatched right-of-ways in red in there, and these were actually established right-of-ways back in, I think it was 1900, when the property was platted, and it was actually annexed into the city of Spokane in 1907. So it meets the criteria of our old non-user statute, which means it had to be platted prior to 1904, and it had to be in an unincorporated area before it was annexed into the city for a period of 5 years. And so this was platted in 1900, it was annexed in 1907, so it meets that criteria. So the applicant would like to actually vacate those right-of-ways using the non-user statute, which would mean we wouldn't charge any fees on there. We pretty much do not have any utilities in there at this point in time other than, which I don't show on the map, but if you can see my arrow up there in Rich Avenue, we do have some utilities in there where we're going to reserve an easement. And we used to have an actual transmission water main that runs through La Crosse Avenue that went right through the middle of this site. That line has since been rerouted, basically at Green Street and Ralph, or actually it comes through now in Rockwell. It's been rerouted out of La Crosse. We no longer use this line in La Crosse at all. The transmission main has been rerouted into an area of Rockwell to Ralph Street, and then it goes up Ralph Street and on Rich Street over to North Freya Street. So in essence, we got rid of a large water main that was going through the middle of the site that we no longer need to retain any easements for. So anyway, those are kind of the major components to this vacation. They're looking to vacate these right-of-ways using the non-user statute, which would be no cost. We only have right-of-way reserved for some water transmission main where it still is in the right-of-ways on the periphery of the project. And that's pretty much the components to that one. Be happy to answer any questions.
Eldon, this is Lori. I have a question. So if you go down to where Garland Avenue is and you see that along Empire Avenue and it goes into Ralph Street and that is platted, I'm assuming that Garland Avenue is on the back side of what it looks like houses, right? Along Empire Avenue?
Actually, you've brought up a very good point there, Lori. I pulled up the wrong map. This was an earlier version. They no longer are actually going to vacate Garland.
Oh, okay. Good.
Sorry about that. When I just pulled up this map, that was an early version. So that whole piece of Garland is not in the vacation.
Okay. Then I'm fine. Good. Thank you.
Glad you pointed that out. When I got the map here, I got the wrong one. So
That's okay. Thank you.
yeah. Any other questions on that one? Okay, to the second one. This is an actual vacation of an alley, kind of in the east central part of town. This is actually Sherman Avenue on the west side, Sheridan on the east, and it's between 2nd and Pacific on there. And the applicant on this one has actually had all kinds of vandalism in this alley. It's an unimproved alley that we do not have any city utilities in. There are various fiber utility purveyors in there. I think we have CenturyLink, Vista, Comcast, Zayo, and Verizon are all in this alley. And so to vacate this one, we would certainly want to maintain an easement in there for all those utility purveyors. The goal of this one is to actually, I think the applicants would like to fence the actual, or gate, I should say, not fence, but gate the alleyway at both ends, which means all these utility purveyors would have to have access to that. And so that is the primary reason behind this vacation. This would be an at-cost vacation on there, and so the costs, I think we're estimating that we've calculated, I should say, at $43,200 for this one. And they would have to provide closure work at each end of the vacation, where they basically turn the right-of-way into basically like a driveway drop to indicate it's basically private property at both ends. Those are the primary conditions on this vacation. So I'd be happy to answer any questions on that one. That's all I have. So thank you.
All right. Is there a motion to adopt the advanced agenda as read?
So moved.
Second.
All right. Any discussion? All right. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed, nay? Any abstentions? All right. The advanced agenda is adopted for next week. That brings us to today's agenda. And let's start with the consent agenda. So if you would like to go ahead and read that, Ms. Farnsworth.
Reports, contracts, and claims. 1, 5-year value blanket purchase order with Life Assist, Chelmsford, Massachusetts, the lowest responsive bidder for EMS medical supplies for the fire department. Estimated annual expenditure, $230,000, including tax. Council sponsor, Councilmember Kinnear. 2, contract extension 3 of 3 with Passport Labs, Inc., Charlotte, North Carolina, for mobile pay by phone parking services from February 1st, 2022 through August 1st, 2022, $40,000. Council sponsor, Councilmember Kinnear. 3, amendment and cost increase to contract contract with Sean Cole Construction, Spokane, Washington, for the remodel of the Gardner Investigative Building due to increased window and door materials pricing, $7,263.34. Total contract cost, $54,460.34. Council sponsor, Councilmember Kinnear. 4, report of the mayor of pending A, claims and payments of previously approved obligations, including those of Parks and Library, through January 21st, 2022, total $7,663,273.93, with Parks and Library claims approved by their respective boards. Warrants, excluding Parks and Library, total $6,433,083.39. B, payroll claims of previously approved obligations through January 22nd, 2022, $525,919.97. 5, City Council meeting minutes, January 20th, 2022.
All those in favor of approving the consent agenda indicate by saying aye.
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 Any opposed, nay? Any abstentions? All right, the consent agenda is approved. That moves on to, we have some appointments. Why don't you take them by, no, go ahead and read all of them. That's fine.
Reappoint Bob Anderson and Sally Vantress Lodato to the Park Board to serve from February 2nd, 2022 to February 2nd, 2027. Appoint Chris Neely to serve a vacated partial term on the Plan Commission to end on December 31st, 2023.
All those in favor of those board appointments indicate by saying aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed, nay? Any abstentions? Okay. Thank you for your service. And again, if a member of the public is watching and is interested in serving on a board of commissions, you can go to the city's webpage on boards and commissions and see all of them and see the openings and see what they do. And if you're interested, almost all of them are appointed by the mayor's office, so you can apply there. All right. That brings us to the legislative agenda. We didn't have anything listed on the legislative agenda, but I understand there might be a motion to suspend the rules. So,
Council President,
yes.
I move to suspend the rules to consider 2 resolutions.
And for what purpose? 2.
One for censuring Councilmember Johnson Bingle, and the other one seeking executive action from Mayor Nadine Woodward.
Okay. Those are resolutions 13 and 14, I believe. So that's the motion. It's been seconded. Discussion on the motion to suspend the rules. All right, not seeing any. All those in favor of suspending the rules indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, nay?
Nay.
Nay.
Okay. I believe that's 5-2 in favor of suspending the rules. The rules are suspended for the purposes of adding items to today's agenda. Is there a motion to add Resolution 13 regarding Councilmember Bingle?
So moved.
All right. Is there a second? All right. Is there any discussion about adding it to the agenda? We'll have an opportunity to debate the merits of it coming up. Councilmember Cathcart.
Well, I guess I would be curious to find out why this was held back till 12:07 today, and there was no openness, transparency around this. I mean, I know this has been worked on since Wednesday, so I'm really curious as to why the secrecy.
I can just say that it wasn't secret if you knew about it since Wednesday, and we were just finalizing some language.
Well, I would also just point out, we have a rule for amendments that they be provided by noon. And so I'm wondering why no courtesy in even providing this prior to noon today. Okay.
I would just add, Councilmember Cathcart, that there was no attempt at secrecy. We were asking questions and kind of making sure it was written correctly, making sure that, that we were following the guidelines that we had kind of set up. So please know that if it was late being submitted, it was just we were almost there, but making sure we had it written. And I would hope that the same courtesy would be extended to other council members when they're that close to getting something done and are a few minutes late.
I would just add that I also reached out to you today, Councilmember Cathcart, a little before 1, so it was after that. But I did reach out to you and never received a call back.
Yeah, well, I appreciate the 15 minutes before committee call. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think I'd like to just sort of point out some of the irony here, if I could.
Sure.
That I'm going to be censured for not following a rule, and that's the reason why I'm pushing back against this mandate, and this will come up later, is because it gets to the heart of inconsistent rules, inconsistently applied to the detriment of others, and that's exactly where we find ourselves today.
Other commentary on adding Resolution 13 to today's agenda? All right, I will note that in the council rules, if you have 5 votes, you can suspend the rules, and that suspends all those rules. So that was a vote that was taken already. But all those in favor of adding Resolution 13 to today's legislative agenda indicate by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Nay?
Nay.
Nay.
Any abstentions? All right, that's 5-2. It's added to the agenda. Is there a motion to add Resolution 14 regarding leadership? Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion about adding that? Councilmember Cathcart.
Yeah, before we adopt this, I'm wondering, do we have any legal analysis as to the actual rights of separation of powers between the two sides? I mean, we're basically calling on the mayor to act, I would say, in a very questionably legal way. And I'm wondering if we have a legal analysis that gives us the right to actually call on her to do what is in this resolution.
I haven't been giving a legal opinion one way or the other. I don't know if any other council members have been given a legal opinion one way or the other. It is a resolution, so it's stating the desires and the intent of council, but on behalf of the city government. Yeah.
Can I
Councilmember
ask
Stratton.
if Brian, can I ask if Mr. McClatchy has anything to add to this?
You may. Mr. McClatchy.
Good afternoon, Council. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, great. As pointed out earlier, this is a non-binding resolution making a request that the head of the executive branch fulfill her duties within her scope of her power as the executive leader of the city. That's fully within the power of the city council to make such a request in a legally non-binding resolution that, as the council president points out, expresses the sense of the council. So I don't really think it implicates separation of powers concerns. This is not the council enforcing. This is the council asking the mayor to take executive action.
I'll just respond real quick. Yeah, I realize it's non-binding, but the point is we're asking the mayor if the outcome, if she follows through with what we are asking the mayor to literally violate our rights as a legislative body. And that makes no sense whatsoever. If you can ban 1 council member from City Hall, you can ban 7 council members from City Hall. This doesn't make any sense whatsoever to ask her to violate our rights as a legislative body. So I I mean, the council has the full right to make that decision if they want. I think this is just gross, frankly.
Councilmember Bingle.
I think I echo Councilman Cathcart there. I think this is a pretty dangerous precedent to set to ask another branch of the government to overstep its bounds and remove a member of the of another branch of government. I think it's a really dangerous precedent, and I think it's bad.
Okay. All right. And right now we're just debating whether to put it on the agenda. Any other commentary on placing it on the agenda? All right, not seeing any. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, nay?
Nay.
Nay.
All right, I think that's 5-2, and that's on. And before we get to those will be read in full by the clerk since they were filed recently. I have one other issue that's come to my attention. Several people signed up for open forum, but they wanted to discuss masking and censures, which now those are on the agenda. So my proposal is to let those people, regardless of what side they're testifying on, testify during the debate on the respective resolution as opposed to open forum, because that'll be afterwards. But does anyone have any objection to that? That's just my sense of it. Councilmember Cathcart.
Well, it's not an objection. I mean, they're obviously here for this purpose, and I would like them to be able to share their thoughts. But my frustration, my concern is, yet again, this was kept secret till the last minute. So there's probably a lot of people who would like to be participating, but they are not being given the opportunity. Because this was kept secret, they do not know that we're even going to have this hearing. So I am very frustrated by that, and I think we should defer this if that's going to be the case. People should have a right, I'll save my arguments for when this is actually voted on, but people should have a right to be heard on this.
Yeah, and I'd like to jump in on that. We tallied up in our office the responses, both personal, email, phone call, texts, social media comments, those kinds of things. And we had an overwhelming number of support. On Friday, a conservative number of pro in our position was 1,600. In con of where we were standing, it was 400. And so with the amount of intensity that is shared by this issue, I agree with Councilman Cathcart to not have a regular 6 o'clock session where people have the opportunity when they're not at work to be able to come in and testify. I think is a real shame and a real disservice to this to the community on this particular issue.
All right. Councilmember Stratton.
I would like to add, with all due respect, as Councilmember Bingle and I have talked about this back and forth for a few days, the one thing that was important to me was a breakdown of those numbers. You can say you've had 1,600 for and 400 against, but that doesn't tell me, is that representative of people that live in the city of Spokane, and most importantly, in his district, in that first district? Because I'm getting a lot of emails from people from that district that are very upset by this. So I just want to make that clear. Jonathan, we've talked about that, so that should not be a surprise. But it's unfortunate that we couldn't get those numbers to separate people out to where they lived, where they were coming from, if they were special interests, whatever. I want to know what's coming out of your district and how many of those are within the city of Spokane so we can represent those people.
Totally. And I totally hear where you're coming from. Obviously, that's a lot of responses to be able to break down. And as the members of this committee know, we've been dealing with an intense personal situation, unfortunately. And so the time needed to commit to this. And when you and I talked about that, I believe that was Saturday night. So Saturday night, Sunday into now today, in 2 days' time, when we're dealing other things, it was impossible to break down 2,000 responses in that way. But I would imagine with such overwhelming support that even if we broke it down by city, county, maybe even people out of state, I feel like that's pretty representative of the city, and not just people who live here, but people who work here, people who shop here, people who come here. I think that's pretty representative of the community sentiment.
any more commentary on the narrow issue of simply adding Resolution 14 to the agenda? All right. All those in favor of adding Resolution 14 to the agenda indicate by saying aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed, nay?
Nay.
Nay.
Okay, it's 5-2. I guess maybe we already had that vote. I was just talking about sorry, we already had that vote, and I was just really not looking for a vote, but asking people's feedback on letting people testify. And if I understood, the sentiments were that 2 people would prefer still to defer this for some time, but no one had an objection to anyone testifying about it today. So, okay. All right. Then that brings us to Resolution 13. Ms. Farnsworth, if you'd like to read the entirety of that into the record.
A resolution formally censuring Councilmember Jonathan Bingle. Whereas upon their election to office, City Council members swear an oath to support the Constitution and laws of the State of Washington, the City Charter, the Spokane Municipal Code, and the Constitution of the United States. And whereas in response to the COVID-19 pandemic, Governor Inslee, under authority granted him by the legislature, has issued a number of proclamations, including Proclamation 20-25.17, September 13th, 2021, which prohibits any individual from failing to wear a face covering as required by the Secretary of Health's face covering order, and prohibits any governmental entity from allowing any individual to enter or remain in any indoor space under their control unless the individual is in compliance with the Secretary of Health's face covering order. And whereas under state law, governor's proclamations have the force of law, any person willfully violating any provision of an order issued by the governor under this section is guilty of a gross misdemeanor. RCW 43.06.220, subsection 5. And whereas the city administration has issued clarifying guidance requiring that the governor's proclamation, as applied at City Hall, requires all persons at City Hall to wear a mask unless they are alone at their desk or workstation, and have posted signs throughout City Hall reminding every person who enters City Hall that they are to wear a mask. And whereas Councilmember Bingle has continuously and repeatedly intentionally violated and continues to violate state law by refusing to wear a mask anywhere in City Hall. And whereas employees from multiple city departments have filed formal and informal complaints based on their personal experiences and observations that Councilmember Bingle intentionally and willfully remains in violation of state law and regulations and city policy. And whereas complaints to the State Department of Labor and Industries may also subject the city to enforcement actions, including monetary fines, which should be paid from taxpayer dollars. And whereas Councilmember Bingle's intentional and willful violation of state law, state regulations, and city policy is wrongful conduct that affects the performance of his official duties as an elected official of the city of Spokane. And whereas Councilmember Bingle's intentional and willful violation of Governor Inslee's Proclamation 20-25.17 is an unlawful act punishable as a gross misdemeanor. And whereas Councilmember Bingle's knowing and intentional refusal to support and uphold the laws of the state of Washington in this case, through his refusal to obey the governor's proclamation, which has the force of law, is a knowing and intentional violation of his oath of office. And whereas Councilmember Bingle's intentional refusal to wear a mask while within City Hall shows an intentional and flagrant disregard for the health and safety of every person with whom he comes into contact, including city employees, fellow council members, city council staff, and members of the public who enter City Hall. Now therefore be it resolved that the Spokane City Council hereby issues a formal censure of Councilmember Jonathan Bingle due to his willful, intentional, knowing, and wrongful conduct affecting the performance of his official duties, his violation of the oath of his office, his violation of state law, and his actions displaying his lack of judgment, which reflects poorly on the public's trust and confidence in government generally and local elected officials specifically.
All right, as far as process goes, I'm gonna, as we often do, take public comment first, and then I'll let a proponent of the resolution speak, and then opponent from council members speak, and we'll just go back and forth on that. So the people that have signed up to speak by video are Joshua Jackson, Nicholas Kreider, Paul Dillon, and Cully Paris. And then Glenn Rose has signed up to speak by phone, and Greg Rose. So maybe I'll invite Greg Rose to dial *3 first. Greg's on the phone. And if you haven't testified before with us, keep in mind that the video is about a 30-second delay, so you're going to want to be on listening to the phone to be called out. All right. Checking, not seeing Greg Rose on the phone. Checking with our production people. Still not. All right, then let's move to Joshua Jackson. Oh, here's a hand. Well, if you're on call-in user, you're not going to know you're call-in user too, but if you're on the phone, if you could introduce yourself.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, who's this?
Hi, this is Joshua Jackson.
Okay, Joshua. You have up to 3 minutes.
Awesome. I'll just keep it short. I'm a healthcare provider for Providence and as well as a behavioral health employee over at Frontier Behavioral Health. I do support Jonathan Bingle's actions. I don't think that they are violating a law in particular because the mandate, while it is enforced through the public health, is not enforced through law. And I do not formally support the censure either.
All right. Thank you for participating, Joshua. Next up is, I believe, well, I'll go to Cully Paris. Cully, if you're there, you have up to, are you there, Cully?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes. Welcome to City Council. You have up to 3 minutes.
Thank you. I didn't have any idea when this would happen, so I've been riding my bike home. Pardon, it'll just take me about 10 seconds to catch my breath. I do call in support of Jonathan Bingle as well.
Okay.
I'm an engineer here in town. I've lived here for 20 years. My wife has struggled tremendously the last 2 years with the mask mandate and with the inability of people under the leadership of our state and our local authorities, the inability of people to have grace and understanding for people who have a different level of conviction and who really struggle. I've had lots of conversations with my wife crying as she tells me about a panic attack she had in the store while taking my child out to try to get a pair of jeans, which, you know, are notoriously difficult to fit onto teenagers. And it's just been really hard to live in that world when it feels like when you look at the science, these mandates they're not doing much. They're not actually changing the rate of Omicron spread, the rate of Delta spread, the rate of Alpha spread, and they're harming people and children at the same time. And I applaud somebody standing up and making a choice of conscience. And, you know, I know Jonathan well enough to know that if somebody was really uncomfortable and they're directly with him, he'll find a way to make accommodations for that conversation to happen in a gracious way. I think this is more about pounding somebody than it is about finding a way to live together, which is really what we've got to do in this world. So that's what I would just say. And I live in the city of Spokane. I do not live in Jonathan's district, but I really appreciate him and the attitudes he's taken toward the homeless and toward the other needs of the city. are important. He's an important voice. To censure him or try to drop him is foolish. And, you know, I'm still living in Spokane. I'd like to keep living in Spokane. People like Jonathan make that more likely. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Cully, for participating tonight. And then I'm going to do one more call out to Greg Rose. If you're there, Greg, if you want to unmute yourself. Oh, let's see if that's you, Greg. Oh, no, that's Cully. Okay. Okay, I'm not hearing Greg. Next person is Kim Schmidt. And Kim, I don't know if you were on video or phone. If you're on phone, it's *3. Okay. Are you there, Kim?
On phone. Can you hear me now?
Yes. Welcome back to City Council, Kim. You have up to 3 minutes.
Beautiful. Thank you. So good afternoon. I didn't know this was going to be happening today necessarily. I was planning to speak during open forum, so thank you to Hannah Lee for being able to switch me onto this list. What I'm about to say should not come as a surprise, as I've spoken out about many city employees who have not role modeled appropriate masking. I'm incredibly disappointed with the recent statement from Councilmember Bingle against wearing masks. The statement deduced masking down to personal choice, but that's not really how this works. We share spaces. Whether that space is the grocery store, the local coffee shop, or your office, you're likely to encounter other human beings. We know, because the science has proven, that the standard paper surgical mask provides the wearer little protection. Masks are intended to stop the spit that exits your mouth when you speak from landing on the person that you are speaking to, and they are quite effective at that. When you go to your local coffee shop, grocery store, or place of employment, you are likely to have to speak to another human at some point during that visit. If you are not wearing a mask, you are, in the most literal sense, spitting on another human. To take this up a notch, it is also possible that the person you are speaking to, has a medical condition, or that they are caring for a family member, or that they cannot afford to miss work due to illness, or that they have young children at home, or that they might not survive this virus that is spreading like wildfire through our city and county. If you recall, I have stated during open forum I think maybe in November, that my mom had a brain surgery postponed because the hospitals were at maximum capacity. That was the second time that surgery was postponed. In 2020, my dad also had a surgery postponed because the hospitals were too full of COVID patients, and that actually caused him to have to wear a catheter for a couple months, and that wasn't very pleasant for him. Real life consequences because some people are obstinate. So while thinking about what I would say today, I was reminded of a clip from a recent anti-mandate rally in Spokane where a guy who was holding the megaphone said, I don't like to breathe my own bad breath and bacteria, to explain why he didn't want to wear a mask. I actually appreciate that level of honesty because it brings to attention the selfishness of mask resistance. Finally, like most of us, I was taught that places and spaces have rules. I can choose my behavior, but I must also understand that every action has a consequence. If I could choose to drive while impaired, I might get away with it, I might make it home safely. I might be pulled over, I might face fines, jail, educational classes, etc. It is also possible that I could injure or murder somebody. So you don't really know what's going to happen. It's a roll of the dice. Or I could just not take unnecessary risks. Thank you.
Thank you for participating, Kim. Next up I have on my list is Nicholas Kreider. If you're there, Nicholas, you can unmute yourself.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes. Welcome to City Council, Nicholas. You've got up to 3 minutes.
Hey, thank you. So I'm here to actually support Jonathan as well. Really to me, this boils down as this is a personal choice. I think we've all seen COVID-19 numbers here have just been immensely escalated, regardless of what the mask mandate looks like right now. I think this alone in just numbers can almost tell you that a mask literally almost doesn't do anything for you. I think I saw over 4,000 a couple days ago as new case numbers or something like that. It's a number that's unfortunate and it's sad. Many of my family members that do have to wear masks still have gotten COVID because of it. It's just overall not something that I think that we need to force citizens to do, based just solely, I think, upon numbers. Somebody had also made a statement earlier about somebody's had a panic attack from wearing a mask. I can tell you, I've heard that on and on and on from unfortunately even my mother-in-law. It does severely impede your breathing, and I don't think it needs to be something that needs to be mandated upon us. And I want to add that even censoring another individual, especially somebody that was elected, is 200,000% wrong. I can't believe that this even having a conversation about it. He was elected into office. We want to censor somebody because he doesn't want to wear a mask is and should be just almost illegal. And asking a person from another branch of government to remove somebody out of that power is the most insane thing I've ever heard of in my entire life. We don't ask the President of the United States to remove senators, to remove judges, to any of that kind of stuff. Why are we even having that conversation right now? So that's my 2 cents.
All right.
Go, Jonathan.
Thank you so much for participating, Nicholas. And then I'm told that Greg Rose is in our system now. So, Greg, if you're there, if you want to unmute yourself and introduce yourself. Oh, sorry, Greg, you need to hit *3 on your phone.
No.
Are you there? Is that you, Greg?
Can you hear me?
Yes. Greg, welcome to Spokane City Council. You have up to 3 minutes.
All right. Well, very good. Yeah. So I am here in support of Jonathan Bingle. I'm absolutely appalled that I've taken this kind of time out of my life to have to come in and defend Jonathan Bingle, who, I pledged support to this man because of this very reason, because he was willing to stand on this ridiculous mask mandate, which is no different than the vaccine mandate, which is losing in the court of the public. All you have to do is look across the border to Canada, and we can see what our brothers are doing over there. The truck drivers that are also sick of it. We've had enough. This is redundant. This is crazy. Here's the real issue. Here is that it really has nothing to do with the mask or Jonathan not wearing a mask or wearing a mask. What we really know that it has to do is some of you people wanting to censor this man because he speaks on behalf of the conservative group that you're not happy with. That's really what is at the root of all of this. If your mask works, then why does he have to wear a mask? This is the biggest bunch of nonsense. You know it. The American public is waking up to know it and beginning to be fed up with it. You know, you're awakening a sleeping giant, to quote Yamamoto in World War II, the Japanese general who basically became aware that he had crossed the line with the U.S. That's what you've done. That's what you're doing here. And you know what? Whoever is coming after Jonathan in this manner, and if you're going to plant your flag on this hill, just be aware that you've planted on the wrong hill. We're gonna pluck that flag up and we're gonna put it in the trash heap. The momentum is against you, and the best thing you could do is become a chameleon, change your direction here, and get off of this issue, because you're going to lose, and you're going to lose desperately. And that's enough. And it's not quite enough. And here's the thing. You know what? I'm not a rich man, but I've made some money, and I have some resources. This is the first time I've ever participated in any kind of kangaroo court with with the council. And I'm absolutely disgusted with everything that I've heard for the most part. And but I will pledge this: I'm active now, and there's a lot of people like me that are becoming active now. And you think you're going to win? You're not going to win. This issue is not going to go away for you. And everyone who stood against this, we know who you are. We got your names.
Greg,
and there will be
your 3 minutes is up, Greg.
Pay.
Thanks for participating today. And next up, I have Paul Dillon. Paul, if you would like to speak for up to 3 minutes. Welcome to City Council.
All right. First, thank you so much, Spokane City Council. My name is Paul Dillon, and I'm the Vice President of Public Affairs at Planned Parenthood of Greater Washington and North Idaho. Our Spokane Health Center, located in the Logan neighborhood of City Council District 1, proudly serves about 10,000 patients annually. The safety of our patients, staff, and community are our highest priority. We are committed to controlling the spread of COVID-19 and have offered vaccines at our health center, as well as holding multiple successful vaccine clinics throughout the county with our amazing partners. And like many organizations, we've worked hard to adjust to the changing realities of the COVID-19 pandemic. We have to, because while we want to be done with this virus, the truth is the virus is not done with us. As of last week, inpatient capacity at Spokane hospitals was at 96%, and ICU was at 97%. And we've seen how COVID has disproportionately impacted BIPOC communities. 2 years in, the spread of COVID-19 has also accompanied a massive infodemic, a black hole of lies, myths, and conspiracy theories. And as city council members, you are well placed to help hold back the tide of COVID-19 misinformation and lead by example. The Washington rules placed to keep people safe, especially in the workplace, are not unconstitutional. They are not unlawful. Councilmember Bingle's refusal to follow these guidelines is an open violation of the state mask order and City Hall's own policy. And it is clearly on the mayor to enforce those guidelines. And personally, as a former city legislative aide, I have great admiration and respect for this role. Working on behalf of constituents in Spokane was a gift when I was there. Every day that I walked into City Hall was a reminder of how much of an honor it was to be doing this work. And while I had my ideological differences with other members and staff, at the end of the day, we really did care for each other. And nobody ever put another person's safety at risk. So Councilmember Bingle is not taking a heroic stand. It is wrongful conduct. It is costly. And we need accountability. We need accountability to prevent future violations from Councilmember Bingle. We need accountability to not allow the mayor's office to escape the consequences of inaction. And we need accountability to help build trust for public health and safety in Spokane. And so for these reasons, I fully support the censure of Councilmember Bingle and call on the mayor to enforce the law. This cannot wait. Thank you for your time.
Thanks for participating, Paul. And we have one more speaker, Natalie Polson. Is Natalie on the phone or video? All right. Natalie, you have up to 3 minutes. See.
Oh, hold on.
Yeah.
What was that?
Is this Natalie?
Yes, it is.
Natalie, welcome to City Council. You have up to 3 minutes.
Okay, thank you. I'm definitely in support of Jonathan Bingle, and I wanted to make 2 points. Today, many students had an unmasked day, and the sheriff was called into one of those schools in Meade, and he stated very clearly that there is no state or local law that can enforce a mask mandate. It is just a policy that the school is choosing to uphold with the health department. Second thing I wanted to state, and I won't be able to read the whole thing, but I would like to submit it in writing, is a constructive notice and warning to all Washington State employers, notice to principal and notice to all agent, and notice to agent is notice to all principals. I'm just going to read the first paragraph, and then again, I will submit this in writing if you can tell me where. Okay. To all employers, and all business owners and or to whom it may concern, this legal informational flyer is meant to provide you in advance constructive and actual legal notice that no one is under any legal obligation to wear a mask or be vaccinated for COVID-19 virus or PCR tested in a place of business, which is place of public accommodation. Under both federal laws, and it states those laws, that's why I want to submit it to you in writing, it is undisputed that there is no statute or law in existence that requires anyone to be vaccinated, tested, or masked, or that allows any employer in the state of Washington to grant or deny the continued employment or new employment of any person based upon whether or not they received a COVID-19 vaccination or test. So it goes on. Again, I will submit it. And just, I guess the last point I wanted to make is what many of people have already said. The accountability should be standing up for the Constitution and standing up for people's rights. And if people feel comfortable and feel like the mask is providing protection, then they should have the choice to wear it. For those that read the box and it does not stop viral transmission and choose not to wear a mask, we should have that right as well. And that is all I wanted to say, other than I, again, support Jonathan and do not think he should be sanctioned.
All right. Thank you, Natalie. And you can get the address for City Hall on our website, but it's 808 West Spokane Falls Boulevard, Spokane, Washington, 99201. Thanks for participating. That brings us to the end of the people who signed up for public participation today. And then that brings us to council commentary. And as I said earlier, I will take a volunteer from one of the two council sponsors of this resolution first to speak, and then I'll turn it over to Councilmember Bingle, and then back and forth with people as they want to speak. So, Councilmember Zappone, I'll recognize you.
Thank you, Council President. I put forward this resolution to censure Councilmember Bingle, not because he wants to advocate for ending the mask mandate. He is in his right to advocate for that. He can do that while wearing a mask in City Hall or while working from home. I put it forward because on occasion, he doesn't wear them. I did not put it forward because he does not wear a mask on occasion. We are all human. Nobody wants to wear a mask. We have all at times forgotten to wear a mask or aren't sure about the situation. But rather, I put this resolution forward because Councilmember Bingle is intentionally breaking the law, and even worse, he's using his office to break the law. This is the opposite of what an elected leader and a public servant should do. He is issuing statements from his office to brag about not following the law. He has said in interviews in his role as a council member that he is using this as an opportunity to openly break the law because others can't. In the United States, nobody is above the law. The state has the ability to fine the city for a council member breaking the law. In fact, an investigation has already been opened. LNI is investigating this situation. Multiple people within City Hall have filed complaints. Each violation could cost taxpayers $14,000. Taxpayers should not have to pay for a council member breaking the law. This resolution for censure is our way as a body to say that this conduct does not represent us.
Okay. All right. Councilmember Bingle, would you like to speak now or later? It's up to you.
Later, we can let everybody else go.
Okay.
And say their
All
piece.
right. Councilmember Stratton.
So just a couple things. I want to go back to a couple weeks ago when the community read the newspaper and listened to the news and got to witness Gonzaga University versus John Stockton on mask wearing. And I think that Gonzaga University really kind of set the bar. And so did John Stockton. That was an issue. The university stepped up, said, you're not going to use your season tickets unless you wear a mask. He's not going to wear a mask, so it ended. I really wished that this is where we could have gone with this. It wasn't, I don't think, anybody's intention to blow this up, but I'll tell you, it got blown up, and the emails that I'm getting are sad, they're fearful, people are angry, and you add on to it, people that know me know that I'm a huge supporter of city employees. I started getting emails from city employees that were not feeling safe, that felt they didn't matter, that felt they had to wear masks, but certain other people had a choice. And so this has culminated, unfortunately, into having to have a very public discussion about the issue. And I've said all along to anybody that will listen, I don't care what your politics are. I care that we're keeping people safe. I don't care that you don't believe that masks are helpful in this pandemic. I care that we're keeping people safe. For those of us that have spent 2 years taking care of parents who were sick, fragile, children that were sick, and every single day you go to bed at night and you hope to God, even though you've worn a mask, you hope to God that nobody walked into your mom's house with COVID and gave it to her, because there are people in this community that will not survive if they get COVID. There is a person that I love dearly in District 1 who has been such a community servant and a neighborhood person. If she got COVID, she would die. So unfortunately, we find ourselves in a place where Councilmember Bingle is standing up and representing those who don't feel that they have a say. And there are some of us that are standing up and representing those that we hold dear, and those that we want to keep safe, and those who have reached out to us. So this is a tough situation. I also want to add to Greg Rose, if you want to call me personally and you want to sit down and meet with me, we can talk about this, but don't threaten us. Your last line of your communication with us was a threat. I took it as a threat, and I didn't appreciate it. So if you and I want to get together and sit down and talk and have coffee, I'm happy to do it. But this is not the way to threaten people and to stand up all of these, we're going to do this if you do that. This is about public health. It's what I care about, and it's about our employees. And I'm tired of it. Somebody had to stop it. The mayor has not stopped it. So we're taking these measures. And I hope the community understands that this wasn't easy for any of us. Jonathan knows that. We talked. This is not easy. But at some point, people are looking to us to stand up and be leaders. And it's time. And I'm sorry that this is emotional for me, but it is, because I've lived in fear with COVID for a long, long time. And I am so glad that I did not have to deal with COVID attacking my mother's health. I'm glad that she chose when she was going to leave, and she left, and she was happy. But she didn't get COVID, and I'm proud of that. But we worked hard to make sure she was safe. That's all I'm going to say on this. Thank you.
Other council commentary? All right. I don't see anyone raising their hand. So Councilmember Bingle.
Thank you very much. I appreciate everybody who called in today. I appreciate the discussions that I have had, specifically with Councilwoman Stratton. I do appreciate your time. I appreciate your ear. I appreciate your wisdom. I appreciate you sharing with me your concerns. I really do appreciate that. So one person in the office did share with me that they were uncomfortable when I would walk without a mask on. From that time on, I did not go to that person's office or to their boss's office, because I do have a great care for my community and for the health of others. This has never been about the mask. This has never been about, certain things that people have made it into. I heard Councilwoman Stratton say this wasn't anyone's intention to blow this up. Respectfully, I disagree. This was intentionally taken to the newspaper. A letter was sent by two of our council members here to Mr. Adam Shanks, after which I received a phone call. So it was somebody's intention to blow this up, and not just somebody's, multiple somebody's intention to blow this up. When it comes to the complaints that have been filed against me, I hope that in an organization like this, that when a complaint is filed against you, that you would be notified of it. Since I've heard that complaints have been filed against me, I've not been notified that a complaint has been filed. I have called HR most recently a week ago to see when I first heard, have complaints been filed? And the correct answer was no. Nobody had filed a complaint at that time. That doesn't mean somebody couldn't have in the last week, but nobody had filed a complaint, because if somebody filed a complaint, then I would have talked to that person directly and had, you know, a more honest discussion about this particular situation. I hear that people are standing up for city employees, and I applaud that, and I join you in that effort. My efforts on this situation is because I do want to stand up for the employees who are not heard. We have had firefighters released, dozens of firefighters released from their job because of the mandates. We have more public safety officials in the police department who have as I've spoken to them, said, we are not doing this. And the trouble is that right now being a police officer is already incredibly difficult in the climate. There is an insane amount of responsibility. There's an insane amount of scrutiny, sometimes rightfully so. But to be a police officer in today's climate takes a really special individual, and that pool is very small. And what I'm worried about is that if we continue with mandates, what could happen is that we could see that this wasn't their hill to die on, but it was the straw that broke the camel's back. And then what happens when, you know, I've heard up to 150 police officers of a department of about 365 that could walk, when we're already 100 police officers short. I'm genuinely concerned for the public safety of the community, and that is, again, one of the reasons why I've taken this stance. I agree with you, Karen, Councilwoman Stratton. I apologize, Councilwoman Stratton. I agree with you. People are looking for leaders. This is not something I'm doing for self-promotion. You know, once this blew up in the news, again, not of my own accord, you know, our business has obviously taken a pretty significant hit. This isn't something where I thought I was going to get ahead. This is something where I just listened to the people that I am tasked to represent. And while not everybody agrees with my stance, the overwhelming majority have told me, Jonathan, this is something we want. Please be our voice. There are plenty of people on the city council, in the state legislature, in the state government that are advocating for people who are vaccinate everybody, mask everybody. There are very few advocates, very few voices for those who feel like they don't have a voice in our representative government. And while that's a very difficult decision, and it has impacted me personally, this is a decision that I feel good about because I want to represent those who feel as if they don't have a voice. I want the minority to always have a stance, to always have a voice, and that's why I've taken this stance. I understand that that many people, you know, have lived in fear, and I've heard that, and I think that that's a tragedy because we have things now that we didn't have 2 years ago. We have vaccines, we have masks, we have therapeutics, we have all kinds of things that were not available 2 years ago. And I'm thankful that partially from the leadership of the Trump administration and from the pharmaceutical companies, that in record time we were able to get these things through to protect and to save people. And I'm thankful that I live in the United States and that we have the ability to do those things and to keep our loved ones safe. This has never been about the mask. This is about me standing up for those who feel like they don't have a voice. I'm frustrated with the inconsistencies. I see that, you know, when we, you know, there are numerous examples I can share personally of being in the office where people were not following the mandate. I have evidence of all kinds, and it's not something that needs to be brought up because I'm not intentionally in the same way that people are trying to use me as the face of an issue. I was going to, but I don't think I will. I want to say that there have been numerous examples where people in our office who have been in government significantly longer than me have not followed this rule. I'm standing up against the inconsistencies. I'm standing for those who I don't feel like are being heard and they don't feel like are being heard. So when it comes to this situation, I understand the City Council has an obligation to represent its district. When it comes to District 1, there are many more concerns that I'm thinking of just besides mandates that I see are inconsistent. I'm thinking about financial issues. N95 masks are not cheap. N95 masks are about $1 a piece. If we're requiring people to wear masks that work, that's going to be an N95 mask. And what that means is that for a family of 4, if we're wearing those every single day, that's a car payment. That's $240 a month that we're spending to make sure that we're protecting our people. And right now, the government is not providing those things. Right now, people are having to provide those on their own. And that's a problem for me. We're watching, we're listening as they're behind on their utility payments. We're listening as they're behind on their rent. We're listening as the rent is skyrocketing. And then we want to add another $240. We want to add another significant expense to them. I do believe that I'm standing for my district, and I do believe that I'm representing them in good conscience to the best of my ability. And I have called many people who've called me. I've called them back, whether they believed or whether they agreed with me or not. I have taken time to sit and listen because I do care about what they have to say. I do care about their position. And it's a very, very muddy, very complicated issue. And I understand where everybody's coming from here. I do appreciate all of you. I do want all of you to be well. I have wished many of you well when you have been sick in the past, and I've genuinely sat down and prayed and asked that you be well when those times came. I'm not here to make anybody sick. And as a matter of fact, you have to have COVID to spread COVID. When it comes to this situation, I believe I'm doing the best that I can to represent my district. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Bingle. Councilmember Stratton.
So I just have a quick question that just popped into my mind. Councilmember Bingle, if we were to, how do I want to say this? If we were to say no censure, would you wear a mask, and would you start wearing a mask in any city, meetings connected with city, neighborhood meetings, coming into City Hall? Is that an option that you would be willing to do with city functions and all of that?
I have no problem following, any when it comes to this, being able to Zoom into meetings and those kinds of things. I have no problem doing that. When people had brought that up to me, I thought I had been amenable to that, and if that was a serious conversation, I would have seriously considered it.
Thanks.
Councilmember Zappone. You're on mute.
Opposite way. My follow-up to that is Councilmember Bingle. Would that mean you would enter City Hall with a mask if you come pick up things from your office ever?
Forgive me, my computer is dying. I'm trying to plug it in. Sorry, forgive me. Give me just 1 second, please. Sorry.
Sure, no worries.
Sorry, like I said, we have a family situation. I'm trying not to get them on camera here. So, what was the question again? Forgive me. Sorry.
Yeah, my question is, would you wear a mask if you come into the building, City Hall?
I do not intend to wear a mask. But again, like I said, I am amenable to making our meetings outside of City Hall if it's making people uncomfortable in the way that people are telling me it is.
We've told you that already, and you still came to City Hall on Friday without a mask.
I mean, if we want to talk about not masking in public situations, I think there's plenty of times that you, sir, have been unmasked, and I think there's plenty of evidence to show it. And so while you can say, hey, you refuse to do this, you've been a government employee longer than me. You have knowingly and intentionally and willfully and repeatedly broken this law.
I just want to repeat what I said from the beginning. It's using your office to break the law.
I'll repeat where I'm coming from. As a government employee, you know the law, you know the mandate as well as I do. Even better because you've been a government employee longer than I have. You work around children. You have told them to mask up. You have ensured that they masked up. And still, when you're out at a bar with your friends, you choose not to mask up. Those kinds of inconsistencies are why I'm fighting this mandate.
Any other, Councilmember Cathcart?
Yeah, thank you. I'll be real brief. There's really not much I can add that Councilmember Bingle didn't already say, and I thought his response was spot on. But my biggest frustration continues to be just this process. 3 hours notice, although I will say how impressive it was that I think 80% of those speaking, maybe 70% were supporting Jonathan. But I'll tell you what, he talked about this issue on the campaign trail. He did not keep this a secret. He was very open and honest about what he believed. I saw him firsthand many, many times. The public overwhelmingly said, this is who we want in office. We're not a month out of him taking office. And already we're saying, well, we don't care what the voters said. You know, we're gonna punish. And I just don't think this is the right process. Let's have more conversation, at least before you get to this point. I have not been a part, except for one question from the council president about my views, I have not been a part of any, real robust discussion on this issue. And I don't know how we are jumping all the way to censure before conversation. And I'm sure others have had conversations that have just not included myself, so that's fine. But I'm just saying, as a council level, before we bring this to the full council for a vote, there should be some conversation. And it shouldn't be 3 hours notice, and it shouldn't be kept close hold until the last minute. The public, the constituents that Jonathan and I represent have a right to be here. They have a right to speak. They have a right to, for or against. I mean, either way, frankly. But they have a right to be here. And so I completely disagree with the process, how this has come about. I don't think there's been any thought for the public side of this, which is really frustrating. When it comes to the censure, absolutely, council has the right to consider a censure, no problem. But is this the right way and the right path to go about it? I simply disagree. I don't think this is the right way to do this. And there should have at least been a lot more conversation before we reached this point. And as far as the other, I think we're kind of talking about both here. As far as the other resolution goes, I still hold that the idea that the mayor can ban individual council members from accessing city resources, city hall or otherwise, is absolutely insane. If you can ban one council member, you can ban 7. Talk about how you could disrupt the workflow of government if you have that power. There is no way any power like that was ever intended to be given to an opposite branch. No way. I do not believe the mayor can ban city council members from City Hall, which is what we are calling for in this resolution. So I am the strongest no you can possibly imagine on that. That is just wrong.
Any other council commentary? Yeah, I'll just say briefly that censure is simply the council members telling one council member that you're violating the law, you're violating your duties of office, in our opinion, whether or not it's the public's opinion. And in this case, I am certainly sympathetic for anyone who has a minority perspective and raises it. I've spent 30 years as a lawyer advocating for people's right to free speech and free expression. And I hope that Councilmember Bingle continues to speak his mind on whatever he believes, for whatever reason. But it's the actions that I'm concerned about. And there is a law, and if we set an example that we get to decide which laws we obey or not obey, the whole social contract dissolves. And it's fine to do civil disobedience and take the consequences, again, to show how strongly you feel and make a point. But to violate the law and not expect to take the consequences, that's untenable. And we just can't have each person deciding which laws they think are good or bad and only following the ones that are there. And censure is really just making a statement. It's not a particular consequence in and of itself. And as several people have pointed out, City Council doesn't have a lot of options. Really, the voters can choose to recall someone for violating the law, but we can't stop someone. And Councilmember Bingle as well as any other staff members, can work remotely and have the full resources of the city and do their job without breaking the law, without endangering people or scaring people. And so I'm going to vote in favor of the censure, but shouldn't interfere with Councilmember Bingle following the law. There are a few other consequences that we could bring to bear to try to get him to follow the laws until the laws change, or he gets a judge to say that the law doesn't apply to him, and we'll probably pursue that in the future. But for the purpose of following the law that's designed to protect all of us in the community, I'm going to vote for censure. So with that, we'll have a roll call.
To respond to that real quick.
Oh, sure,
I
Councilmember.
do have evidence of many council members knowingly, willfully, intentionally, and repeatedly, doing the same thing that I did. And so I appreciate your passion for the rule of law and for the letter of the law. And I look forward to similar actions being taken against the other council members.
Yeah. I'll just say for me, I've only had one council member tell me that they will absolutely refuse to follow this law no matter what. So that's, for me, that's the difference. But I appreciate the principled position. With that, we'll have a roll call vote. Councilmember Stratton.
Aye.
Councilmember Kinnear.
Aye.
Council President's an aye. Councilmember Cathcart.
No.
Councilmember Wilkerson.
Aye.
Councilmember Bingle.
No.
Councilmember Zappone.
Aye.
Okay, that passes 5-2. That gets us to resolution number 14. Ms. Farnsworth, if you could read that.
Resolution number 2022-0014, a resolution seeking executive action from Mayor Nadine Woodward. Whereas since 2000, the voters of Spokane have elected the mayor within a mayor-council system, sometimes called a strong mayor system, and the change was in part driven by a desire of the voters to have a mayor who is directly accountable to the people, had the ability to provide strong leadership, and whose job went far beyond the merely ceremonial role that was required of the mayor under the former council manager form of government. And whereas during the past 2+ years, the city of Spokane has been faced with challenges that simply require strong, active, visible leadership from the mayor. And whereas in response to the COVID-19 pandemic, Governor Inslee, under the authority granted him by the legislature, has issued a number of proclamations, including Proclamation 20-25.17, September 13th, 2021, which prohibits any individual from failing to wear a face covering as required by the Secretary of Health's face covering order, and prohibits any governmental entity from allowing any individual to enter or remain in any indoor space under their control unless the individual is in compliance with the Secretary of Health's face covering order. And whereas the proclamation also prohibits cities from allowing individuals within the buildings to violate the mask order, and whereas under state law, governor's proclamations have the force of law. Any person willfully violating any provision of an order issued by the governor under this section is guilty of a gross misdemeanor, RCW 43.06.220 subsection 5. And whereas allowing violations of the mask requirement could, in addition to endangering the health and safety of the people at City Hall, employees, and members of the public alike, but it may also subject the city to litigation and fines imposed by the Department of Labor Industries. And whereas by allowing the individuals to violate this mask order, City Council is concerned that the administration is engaging in an intentional and willful violation of Governor Inslee's Proclamation 20-25.17, which is an unlawful act punishable as a gross misdemeanor. And whereas, in addition to the legal reasons described in this resolution, City Council anticipates Mayor Woodward will enforce the reasonable limited health and safety regulations within City Hall, since not doing so would show disregard for the health and safety of every person who enters City Hall, including city employees, fellow council members, City Council staff, and members of the public. Now therefore let it be resolved that the City of the Spokane City Council urgently requests that Mayor Woodward promptly enforce the reasonable health and safety regulations issued by the governor and the Department of Labor and Industries to support ending the public health crisis and mitigate its effects here in Spokane, keep all employees and members of the public safe within city facilities, uphold her oath of office, enforce the law, and help increase the public's trust and confidence in government generally and local elected officials specifically. Be it further resolved that the mayor should use the power of her office and the personnel who report to her to investigate any person not complying with state laws regarding masking within city-owned buildings and criminally prosecute willful noncompliance and remove them from city-owned buildings.
Thank you, Ms. Farnsworth. All right. I don't have any public requested comment on this one. Is there any council commentary? Councilmember Zepon.
Thank you, Council President. I put forward this resolution to ask the mayor to enforce law to prevent taxpayers from footing the bill. Let me be clear. We have a council member using his office to break the law. A mayor who is not enforcing the law, and taxpayers will have to pay $14,000 per violation. This could cost taxpayers tens of thousands of dollars. It is the mayor's duty to enforce the law for all city employees and everyone who enters its building. It's not about banning a council member from conducting business. Council member can conduct business by following the law, virtually or by wearing the mask. This is not a gray area. Nobody gets to break the rules. What's to stop any individual from the public from coming to City Hall tomorrow and not wearing a mask? Gonzaga just showed leadership and said nobody is above the law. Where has the mayor been? The mayor should follow the lead of Gonzaga and prevent this political stunt from not only creating unsafe working conditions, but also costing taxpayers tens of thousands of dollars.
Councilmember Cathcart.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if we could get clarity. I see Johnny is on. What is the specific rule as it's written for mask wearing?
Thank you, Councilmember Cathcart. I'm going to defer to the city attorney as we've already provided direction to him on that topic.
The rule is, the city rule is that all individuals who are in city facilities are to wear a mask when they're in the city facilities.
So technically, right? So technically, I'm in violation. The council president is in violation right now. So there are multiple council in Wilkerson.
No, if you're in your office, you don't have to wear a mask. The guidance was sent out on that last week, and it's been sent out about 5 or 6 times. If you're in your office or your workspace, and we've meant that to mean if you're in an office that has partitions, if you're in your office, you're not required to have your mask on. When you're supposed to wear your mask is when you're interfacing with other people, or you're out of your office, walking somewhere else, going to a restroom, or meeting with anyone else.
So does, I guess just for clarity's sake then, if you're outside of your office, your cubicle, you're supposed to be wearing a mask, basically, right? If you're outside of your cubicle, you're supposed to be wearing a mask.
Yes. And there have been occasions in a number of offices where somebody forgets to put on their mask to go to the copy machine. They're asked to put on their mask. They do it. I get that people are tired of it, but that's the expectation. And all employees either follow it or they're sent home, or if they refuse to follow it, they will be put on leave without pay.
So I just ask, so is the dais an extension? Because I see the council president is there, and I know there are others in chambers. And so is the dais an extension of your cubicle, or would that be outside of your office?
No, I think if he's there, he is probably socially distanced, or he's the only one there. That is not a problem either.
So the rule is not outside your cube, it's about social distance. So if you're 6 feet from somebody, then you're okay.
Yeah, there are variables to it.
Okay, so 6 feet is a rule. Okay, thank you.
Thank you,
So
Mr.
then,
Ormsby.
clarify.
Councilmember Stratton.
To clarify, in the building, so long as I'm socially distanced, right, when we're in those situations on the property, there are exceptions when you cannot be wearing a mask so long as you're properly distanced. Is that what I'm hearing?
Well, let's not play Philadelphia lawyer here, to be real honest with you. If you're moving around the building and you don't have a mask on, it's going to be very difficult to be socially distanced. If you're in a meeting, and most of us wear them in meetings, but if you're in a meeting and it's a large conference room and there's 4 people in the meeting and you're socially distanced, that's not going to be a problem. But most everybody in that situation is going to wear a mask. I can tell you I was in 5 of those meetings today, and everybody in every meeting, no matter how people were in there, was wearing a mask.
And forgive me, I don't mean to be a Philadelphia lawyer, but a significant political action is about to be taken on me, so I think clarity is of the utmost importance.
Councilmember Stratton.
So I'm just going to cut to the chase here, because this is what, as we discuss this and just thinking about what I've seen in City Hall the past few months, and especially the last, since the beginning of January, what everybody's talking about. The community has weighed in. I have heard from people, and the big question they ask is, with all of these issues boiling, where's the mayor? Where is that voice that is going to represent city government by saying we will follow the mandates of the governor of the state of Washington, we will follow the rules of the Center for Disease Prevention, we will follow the rules of the Spokane Regional Health District? Where is that person? And that person is the mayor. This is her responsibility. As far as I'm concerned, I've worked for 3 mayors in my lifetime at City Hall. I know at least one would have had this nipped in the bud a month ago as these started boiling to the top. But this to me is just a very clear way of saying, as we did with the homeless issue, write it out. This is what we're asking. We need an adult in the room to stand up and set out these rules and allow legal to follow them. And if employees want to follow them, great. If they don't, then there's got to be some consequences. But somebody, and I believe it is the mayor's office, is the person that needs to handle this. We haven't seen that. There are some of us that are very frustrated because of that. Thus, this is why this was born. This is why we worked on this resolution. So I'm standing behind it. I'm asking passionately that we get this figured out. We get the mayor to come down and make sure that we're all following the rules so we can move on and deal with the fact that we have homeless people in our communities, and I have people in my neighborhoods that are upset about other issues. We just need to get this decided. We need a leader. We need to move on. Thanks.
And I do agree with your last point there. I think this is a distraction from the issues of the city, and that's why I am upset that this was taken public, because I agree with you. I think it is a distraction from the issues where we do have a homeless crisis, we do have a housing crisis, we do have a public safety crisis. And it was on those issues, as I campaigned, that people wanted me in this position, and partly because of my stances against the COVID mandates. But I agree, it's a distraction.
All right. Any other council commentary? All right. We'll go to a roll call. Councilmember Stratton.
Aye.
Councilmember Kinnear.
Aye.
Council President Sinai. Councilmember Cathcart.
No.
Councilmember Wilkerson.
Aye.
Councilmember Bingle.
Nope.
Councilmember Zappone.
Aye.
Okay, that passes 5-2. That's the end of our legislative business. We do have an executive session. I believe the purpose is to discuss collective bargaining negotiations. Mr. Ormsby, do you have an estimate of how much time we should set aside?
Probably 45 minutes.
Okay, so that would take us to 6:30 by my clock. So we'll be in executive session till 6:30. Ms. Allers has provided a link to those people who are joining it. We do not anticipate taking any action at the end of that 6:30, but I will come out at 6:30 and either formally end the meeting, or Ms. Allers will extend the meeting for a time specific. So with that, we're not quite adjourned, but we are done with our business tonight except for executive session. So we'll see you folks in executive session.
City Council is extending executive session for 5 minutes until 6:35. Again, no further action is expected when they return. Council is extending executive session for 5 more minutes until 6:40 p.m., and no action or discussion is expected when they return.
All right, this is Council President Brian Beggs. We finished our executive session at 6:40, and I'm reporting out, and we're not doing any further business, and we are adjourned.
Slam that thing down. We may as well have had a 6 p.m. meeting anyway.
I know.